Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back on another video from Seth the Programmer. It's really funny. I said, well, that's me done until he, uploads something new, and went and did it. We got every Akatsuki member from Weakest to Strongest. And I was a bit like, I'm sure I've seen this before, but then I remembered that it's Swagkage they'd actually done a ranking list of the Akatsuki. Interested to see what we have here, because I remember in Swags at the end, he placed Obito higher than Nagato, and that was like just single Sharingan Obito, saying that the Kamui is just so difficult to deal with and that like he would beat Nagato in a fight. So it's going to be interesting to see if Seth ends up doing the same thing at the end here, but let's find out. Let's get into it, shall we? Every Akatsuki member from Weakest to Strongest.
Hello everyone, it's your host, Seth the Programmer.
Yo.
Today we're going to be doing my very own Akatsuki ranking list. This video sounds pretty standard, kind of stereotypical, but it seems like everyone has given their inputs on this topic except for me.
You?
So I thought I would finally make one myself. There's a lot of contentious topics on this list to go over, such as Kakuzu versus Haha,
that was funny.
I think I have a lot of insight to give that'll be helpful for everyone. For this video, I'll be taking a similar approach as I did with the Saiyan ranking video.
Sweet, that was a good video, yeah.
Where I put certain characters in classes and a range of numbers.
Yeah.
As obviously there isn't always an objective way to put one group of characters above another all the time. This list will also include every Akatsuki member that was introduced from part 1 of Naruto onward of Obito's Akatsuki. This will not include hypothetical prime characters, so for instance, we'll be listing Pain instead of Nagato, Itachi from part 1,
okay.
and Itachi in his hypothetical prime, and so forth. Also, as a rule, we are not including prep time. This is because obviously prep time implies it is not your normal combat ability.
Oh, right, so like being able to set up before the fight kind of thing, right.
For this character to win kind of video. You guys will see as we go on. The Akatsuki are a group of high Jonin plus level shinobi, all with a task
tough
entrusted
cookies.
by Obito Uchiha to acquire all of the tailed beasts. That being said, it's no exaggeration to say that pretty much every Akatsuki member is an absolute monster.
Yeah, they have to be able to capture the Biju.
So none of them are ever really implied or considered weak for the most part in the series, but there is definitely a strength hierarchy implied by feats and the actual characters themselves that can be looked into. So starting with Class D, I feel this is the one member of the Akatsuki most people believe is the weakest, and for pretty obvious reasons, that being Hidan at number 10.
Yeah,
Hidan, while
the immortality thing is decent, but...
like Asuma being a character who was almost at the level of Kakashi in part 1 in the data books, and had arguably the top close-range combat skills of anybody at the time, also stated in the data book. This same person, Hidan, is self-admittedly the least accurate and slowest member in terms of attack speed among the Akatsuki.
The immortality thing is definitely like
Kakuzu is the main guy who does all of the work of their duo, with even Kakashi recognizing that Kakuzu was especially powerful among them. Hidan does have a
but Kakashi could be paid to fight.
But you can just argue his immortality, and Kakuzu could have just done most of the work for him, so he doesn't really have anything going for him other than being stronger than Asuma. Granted, as I said earlier, Asuma is powerful, but compared to the other characters in the show, it's usually safe to say Hidan is at the bottom in terms of scaling. In Class C, we have numbers 9 through 7.
Alright, cool, this is interesting.
In order are Deidara, Sasori, and Conan. It's not Conan. So this...
Yeah, I would agree, actually. I would put them all in the same kind of, like, ranking, yeah.
My thoughts, so don't get your panties in a bunch quite yet, but Conan, for the most part, is actually pretty beatless without prep time.
Yeah.
In the creation of the Akatsuki video game movie, she is shown recruiting and defeating Sasori, but this video game scene is arguably not even canon.
Right, okay, yeah.
Such as Storm Generations are confirmed to be worked on as anime canon.
Right.
The creation of the Akatsuki cutscene in Revolution.
Plus, when Conan fights Obito, that's a lot of prep time she had for that.
Such as creating and designing the perfect Susanoo of Itachi and Shisui, but there is, once again to my knowledge, nothing confirming the actual movie part is canon, the same way Generations is. Conan's only other scaling is just being pretty confirmed to be above Hidan in Hidan's own words, and with the prep, forcing Obito to use Izanagi. However, in the Obito fight, we have confirmation that the only reason she did remotely good in that fight to begin with is because Obito initially underestimated her.
Yeah, he was like, wait, didn't realize you were had anything going.
Time she even did good against Obito, it was when he wasn't going all out. So it's hard to scale her using that. We're also not using prep time for this video due to the nature of it, as obviously prep time would allow a lot of characters to be higher than they should be.
Yeah.
The other problem is that her only other real combat showing is against Jiraiya, in which Jiraiya and Base
didn't really do much, though.
tag her with a questionable attack. Even against Base Jiraiya, Pain thinks she would be pretty much 0 health. Pain also told her that Naruto would mop her if she tried to fight him during the Pain arc as well as this, so it's not very practical to rate Konan as a top tier.
Yeah, when she can't go up against people that other people could, yeah.
Because obviously there's the whole argument of, well, Deidara said Sasori was stronger than him, and the typical counter, well, Deidara was only saying that to get Kakashi off his back and to make him focus on Sasori so he could capture Naruto, blah, blah, blah. We've all heard it before, so let's go over the stats instead. The stats to be considered are more so in the speed category, considering both combatants are pretty competently able to damage each other. In terms of speed, we see characters like Deidara as a
Deidara can do some goddamn damage, man.
Anoki being someone who is able to face Edo Tsuchikage Mu, and of course later Madara. He also does okay against Sasuke, however it seems in terms of actually fighting, Sasuke was superior, and Deidara had quite a hacks and range arsenal that won't be as effective versus Sasori, which I'll explain soon. Sasori, in terms of speed, actually scales to Kazekage Gaara and Rasa, if not being blatantly superior to them. This is due to the fact that Sasori has defeated and possesses the third Kazekage.
I mean, yeah, you gotta look at how he's actually managed to defeat those really high-ranking people and then use them as puppets, like.
Gaara is alive. Rasa, as an Edo Tensei, is also able to keep up with Gaara during the war arc as well, and is mainly caught off guard while trying to defend the other Edo Kage from Gaara's aerial barrage. Gaara not only is fast enough to actually face Gengetsu, who is Ryu's rival, and is fast enough to face Anoki as well, but also faces and defends himself from Madara, and actually directly catches and rips Deidara's arm off at the start of Shippuden.
Sick.
Many even theorize that Gaara might have actually won that fight, or have done way more serious damage to Deidara if he didn't have to defend the Sand Village.
Yeah, like if it was just a one-on-one focused fight, it wasn't having to look at other people,
Deidara's arm off is not a good look in terms of speed. Sasori is also a very long-range combatant, has taken down nations with his puppets.
Yeah, his army of puppets, man.
He has
so, yeah.
poison magnet projectiles that he controls the trajectory of mid-air that we know can shred through Deidara's clay, as this was shown when Orochimaru...
What was the music then? Am I missing something?
Kazekage once again, and was able to shoot Deidara's clay out of the air. Obviously, that Edo is also shown to be weaker than Sasori's puppet. Also, if he does ever hit Deidara, which the speed isn't flawed for sure, he also one-shots him upon contact due to his poison, but this is also while he's just suppressed. As we know, his true puppet form himself is even stronger and can also control puppets to fly. Deidara's C4 jutsu also would not work on Sasori, as he doesn't even breathe, so the microscopic affect him in a similar way that they didn't affect any of the trees in the area either. Take that as an example. Deidara's last resort is, of course, the C0 bomb,
which is just...
As I said earlier, Sasori, if anything, is faster and would poison Deidara. Sasori's poison, for those that
just get out of the way of it,
also paralyzes and completely subdues the target, meaning the battle goes to Sasori at worst and a tie at absolute best for Deidara. Many people like to downplay Sasori due to the Sakura battle, however, a few things to consider is that Sakura was specifically trained and even stated in the databooks to be extremely
if Sakura could beat anybody, then it's just like, wait a minute, whoa, they must have been trashed.
On top of this, Shio, who was fast enough to avoid a Rasen Shuriken from a KCM Shadow Clone as an Edo Tensei, was helping her through a lot of the battle. And on top of that, we then learned that Sasori is actually extremely emo and wasn't going all out, genuinely trying to kill either of them with all of his effort the entire time.
That's brilliant.
Could have won if he actually wanted to. Due to this, I'd say Conan is a 9, Deidara 8, and Sasori is 7. Of course, Conan is higher if you consider the game cinematic and prep time.
But if it's not canon, then...
consider Kisame's statement of him being one of the stronger ones is valid. The only problem with this statement is that most people have not seen Sasori's true form. Even Kabuto and Orochimaru, who specifically spied on him, didn't know of it or his full power. We also
that is interesting.
Comment on Sasori's death, so we have no idea what they thought of his level either. Plus, it seemed more like spitballing from Kisame when we have statements that could possibly challenge this later from more solid sources, which I'll get into. Of course, though, as I said before, Class C is up for debate, and I'll let you guys choose who you think.
I do like how he's grouping them there, so like could potentially be different.
5, not in order, Kisame and Kakuzu. I'm already getting dislikes for mentioning Kakuzu above Class C already, but people either think he's trash or absolutely broken, but I'm going to argue here that he's more in the middle. Kakuzu could be lower and more in contention with Sasori if you consider a few factors, but I think there's a decent argument for him being C tier. Of course, by putting Kakuzu here, I also have to explain why I don't think he'd be Pain
not necessarily.
Well, unironically, as many of you are aware. So this will somewhat segue into A tier conversation.
That's the Swaikage video, isn't it?
Naruto volumes is stated verbatim to be one of the most deadly members of the Akatsuki. Considering Kakuzu is not particularly haxed and is more of a durable brawler type that has a lot of stamina, it is probably no exaggeration to say this is referring to power, which even Hidan and Obito both respect. Hidan and Obito being rather stingy with their opinions of others, with Hidan blatantly saying that he wants to murder Pain when he gets the chance. Being one of the most deadly definitely implies he's in the top half of the Akatsuki rather than the lower half, considering he isn't haxed. Hacks being things like such as poison or genjutsu, etc.
Yeah, he doesn't have anything like that going on, does he?
Kakuzu faces off against Kakashi and is more or less his level, give or take. They are able to fight each other, block each other's jutsu and attacks, and can tank each other's attacks as well. Of course, Kakuzu does seem to have the upper hand against Kakashi, but Kakashi seems to imply that with the Mangekyo, he would near-death Kakuzu. This is pretty insane, considering this is a much more efficient Kakashi than the one that Deidara was already running from. Kakashi, shortly after, then faces off against Tendo and a Pain, and is able to take attacks from them and even forces Tendo Pain to act with caution. The same Pain to rip Jiraiya apart, with Tendo arguably being stronger than the ones that already ripped Sage Jiraiya's arm off. Defeating and even basing Kakuzu was enough for Obito to warn Pain of Naruto and his allies' abilities, showing that he is in a decent enough caliber to even fight back against Pain, which is
use that as it's like
Kakashi. However, this fear or warning
they're aware of how high up in the ranks that Kakuzu is.
Anybody else? Only Kakuzu. Even with the knowledge that Naruto's allies, who Obito references, have faced these people before, they are not mentioned in Obito's warnings. This, alongside the volume statement, spells it out that Kakuzu is more than likely on a higher tier than the previous, and is considered quite impressive by the actual
give him that. He's not at the tippity top, but he ain't at the bottom either.
This to please the Kakuzu fans, by the way. Swear. Anyway, for Kisame, Kisame is awkward because his power fluctuates pretty wildly depending on his competition, with him being able to become stronger the stronger his opponent is, respectively. However, there seems to be limits to this that he admits to a few times. In part 1, he seems to believe his limits are Sani level, like Tsunade, Orochimaru, and Jiraiya.
Which is decent, though.
Consistent if you consider Tsunade a sort of pseudo-rival for the 4th Raikage, who rivals Killer Bee in his completed tailed B state, and all of the Sanin are supposed to be somewhat rivals in strength, with Kisame only taking on Killer Bee's version 2 cloak after being heavily amped and stealing tons of chakra. With even then, he was almost getting one-shot by the version 2 state of Killer Bee before fusing with Samehada, and even admitted base B could have put a hole in him with a lightning style enhanced.
And then wasn't Kisame also known as like the tailless beast? Or something like that, I can't quite remember the term.
The fact that Obito thinks Kisame could even fight Killer Bee long enough to absorb his chakra is a great feat within itself. Considering Sasuke fought Bee recently, is someone who Bee thinks is the strongest he's ever fought before, even stronger than Jonin, Minato, respectively, who Bee has fought many times before. Killer Bee in base is also able to fight against reanimated base Itachi for a good amount of time, and can even hold off some of his jutsus, as well as help a fatigued KCM Naruto face off against Obito's reanimated Jinchuriki or the new Paths of Pain. Considering clones can drain the powers of the original, as we see with Hashirama, it might be no exaggeration to say that KCM Naruto might have been nowhere near his peak during these battles, but these shadow clones were still fighting off many Edo Tensei that everyone in the Alliance was blatantly struggling with, including Gaara, Inoki, and so on. Due to this, and even base B scaling to a stronger original KCM Naruto rather than a shadow clone, even if they are all fatigued, it's very likely Kisame would simply be in a higher caliber than the rest of Class C and D. Kisame is also able to force Might Guy to have used the 6th gate.
Yeah, he pushed him quite far, didn't he?
And Might Guy has to use the 7th gate against him later when he steals some of B's chakra again. Between him and Kakuzu, I'd personally like to go Kisame, but for the Kakuzu fandom's sake, we'll run with the volume statement and say Kakuzu is stronger than base Kisame and is number 5, with Kisame maybe being able to overpower him with amps later.
Maybe.
Don't smite me.
Maybe.
In Class A,
Here we
have
go.
numbers 4 through Zetsu, which are Itachi Uchiha, Pain, and Obito Uchiha, not in order once again. Itachi, we can all agree, has varying degrees of strength, but in the lore is generally considered above Sannin tier and is on a different level than most of the cast. He is able to point a finger at and annihilate Orochimaru, faces off against Kakashi,
yeah, man.
30% clone, toys around the Sasuke,
yeah.
one who was already able to pull
it was a clone, wasn't it?
Yeah. Annihilate Orochimaru in the same fight to the point Zetsu thinks he's completely invincible while he's on the verge of having a heart attack.
Yeah, he's like nearly dying.
Obviously, people will then make contentions about the statement, part 1 of Jiraiya and facing off against Kisame and Itachi, where Itachi then lies to Kisame saying, oh, we might stalemate or we might kill each other even with your help. But obviously, this is more so based on Itachi not wanting to harm the Leaf Village. We already know that Jiraiya is more of an equal to Orochimaru, and Orochimaru thinks Itachi is blatantly superior to him. So obviously, Itachi is not equal to Jiraiya. Kisame pretty blatantly always concedes Itachi would mop him in a fight.
Yeah, he always says he would fight him, like, yeah.
Even while extremely ill, he actually spars with Kisame in a Canon Generations mini-movie scene. And while Kisame is able to get the upper hand, Kisame concedes the moment Itachi activates his Mangekyo Sharingan.
Yeah, it's like, okay, that's too far now.
Itachi in his youth was also considered a rival for Obito Uchiha when he first joined the Akatsuki in the novels, and even with his sickness, Obito thought that Itachi could pretty much Batman him if he has ever learned his secret and could kill him if he wanted to. Many people downplay Itachi because of the Sasuke battle, but we know he wasn't even trying during this fight.
Yeah, and he was ill. He went well.
He pretty much just toys around with the guy stronger than Deidara and Orochimaru and won. Orochimaru, even post-fight with Hiruzen, thinks he can fight off Sasori after researching a lot into him, and even though he doesn't know of his true puppet form, he knows of his third Kazekage puppet, and even then, and with his 2 Hokage summons he had before, he still never considered fighting Itachi. Even after fighting Hiruzen, he blatantly admits Itachi was always stronger than him, and wants to take Sasuke to reach his level. With his Amaterasu that could easily one-shot any Jinchuriki, Totsuka Blade, and Yadamir, Itachi really is pretty much invincible in the first half of Shippuden.
Damn OP,
now, the reason I put Pain in A tier is for many lore reasons, which I'll go over. In terms of his raw feats, he is able to take down a Kakashi who, if anything, is more powerful and trying even harder than he did against Kakuzu. Even after spamming his Mangekyo he thought he would near-death Kakuzu with, he is absolutely flatlined and can't even put a scratch on Tendo Pain, even with Choji and Choza both helping him out. Pain also is able to tag and damage full power Sharingan Kakashi faster than literally anybody in the entire series. Stabs him in pretty much 10 seconds of their fight. Imagine if Pain had Sasori's poison, he would have just killed Kakashi like he was a background fodder character. Or how Sasori
what's this music? I'm missing a joke here.
Tendo then becomes extremely fatigued after he spurts out and uses all of his energy to annihilate the Leaf Village.
All of the Leaf, yeah.
And then has to face Sage, Naruto, and all of Mount Myogoku. Naruto at this moment is an absolute monster. Even in base, Kakashi thinks that Naruto is already strong enough to
at that Sage mode, man. It's like, whoa.
And even after seeing Kakuzu fight, he thought he could destroy him. He didn't just see Kakuzu and go, wow, that guy... No. He didn't just see Kakuzu and go, wow, that guy could blitz me by over 72 times my current speed. He looked at Kakuzu and thought it was doable. Now, Naruto is stronger than ever before with all of Mount Myogoku helping him. Pain just literally fought the entire Leaf Village by himself, then wasted all of his power blowing it up. And Naruto learns all of Pain's secrets like he has a video game guide of a boss ready on hand, and guess what? He still loses. Pain is also entrusted with facing down the Leaf Village after Kakuzu is annihilated and the Akatsuki watched it happen. With the actual Shonen Jump release of Pain's introduction, then literally immediately saying Pain is the strongest man in the Akatsuki and he is hunting for Naruto. With his Chubaku Tensei, he's able to hold down 8 tails of the 9 tails and he put all of his force into it, which means it would have required the full 9 tails to bust out of his full power sealing jutsu. A huge leap in strength from characters like Orochimaru and the Sannin getting mopped by simply 4 tails of it. Even after being defeated, Zetsu thinks that Pain ever being defeated is completely inconceivable and that he has no idea how Obito ever thought it was even possible. Even though Zetsu literally watches and records all battles, he didn't think it was ever possible even after witnessing the rest of the Akatsuki get pretty much defeated. Many argue that Pain is simply not at full power during the Konoha invasion, which is
quite
true.
possibly.
He's actually degrading ever since he fights Jiraiya in the Rain Village, and isn't even close enough to Nagato to use his full power on top of being fatigued, which could explain this loss, as well as nobody expecting Naruto to become so strong, as Obito and Zetsu both imply and tell Sasuke. It's very clear that Pain is in A tier and is intended to be a next level opponent in Akatsuki by Kishimoto himself alongside Itachi. Finally, we have Obito Uchiha. Obito, even with just his orange mask, is able to react to the Raikage and is able to blitz through Inoki's particle style.
Yeah, the camo is just so damn OP.
Obito also thinks he would mop Danzo, who fought MS Sasuke, and is generally unfazed when Kabuto pulls out a swarm of Edo Tensei Akatsuki members,
whatever.
and only decides to work with him when he sees the real Madara be pulled out. Obito has genjutsu that contain even perfect Jinchuriki, and the complete Nine Tails with almost no effort, and can simultaneously fight the fourth Hokage and scare him at the same time. To put this in perspective, Obito pretty much took on the third and fourth Hokage and the entire Leaf Village pretty much at the same time.
Yeah,
and
that's mental.
Almost stalemated them when he was a lot younger and arguably
absolutely
weaker.
insane.
This is, of course,
insane.
no prep time Obito, but even without the Nine Tails, Minato warns that Naruto will have to become a ton stronger to ever fight him. Minato literally watching the battle with Pain unfold right before even saying this, and says he thinks you'd have to have a complete control of the Nine Tails to ever confidently fight him. He's also able to block Suigetsu's Executioner Blade with one arm, Resenzo Killer B2, and never even uses his Mangekyo Sharingan for almost any feats in the series as stated in the databook, or never shows them in combat. He is without a doubt a higher caliber than the rest of the Akatsuki in B and lower, and is impressed by anybody in the series until Madara appears. Now, how does the ranking in A tier go? That depends. On one hand, you could argue Pain is stated to be the strongest, and Zetsu thinks it's impossible to ever lose. On the other, you could know how Minato thinks Obito would require even more strength to face.
I think Obito's better than Pain, but then Itachi.
So maybe you could make an argument that Pain is
I think it's Itachi. Yeah, I think it's that way. I think it's Itachi, Pain.
Examples being
Obito, though, yeah.
Tensei and the Renegon's raw power increase, with Obito and Itachi being faster being a possibility. But I'll let you guys decide how
you guys
decide.
decide.
I know some people think Obito is a completely higher tier, like he'd be like S tier, but unfortunately, there's still too many factors that kind of make it too debatable for me to say that confidently. I want to keep the tiers as these are debatable subjects rather than this is actually how it should go. Now, in S tier, we have Zetsu, number 1. Now, Zetsu is weird, so hear me out, but you can either be utter garbage or pretty peak, so you can either be number 1 or possibly in C tier. And the reason Zetsu is weird is because his power can depend on who he's attached to. So, for instance, when he's attached to Obito, he can fight off EMS Sasuke. When Zetsu is attached to Yamato, he can fight off the entire Shinobi Alliance at the same time.
Right.
So it makes you wonder just how truly strong Zetsu would be.
Okay, wow. I was about to start fuming, but now I'm a bit like, oh, okay.
He also stabbed 10
he killed.
Madara,
Yeah, he did take Madara down. Yeah.
Anyway, that was kind of a joke, but it really depends on those factors, as I said. So maybe you guys can rank Zetsu yourselves, but that's my list. I hope you all enjoyed.
That's really weird.
Maybe consider leaving a like and subscribing. And other than that, until next time.
He put Zetsu at number 1. But then he's got some valid points though. Boo, boo, boo. He did manage to do more damage to Madara than anybody else did, I guess. That was good, and in the end I'm just like, what? Ever seen this? Because as soon as he I'm like, wait, Zetsu's the only person that he hasn't mentioned yet. Surely he's not going to say Zetsu. Surely he's going to, and then... Yeah. Well, that was a good video anyway, that was good. It seemed pretty similar to Swag's list. Although, like, Swagage used Nagato, didn't he? He didn't actually use just Pain, but so, I'd say Obito is definitely higher up if we're just going with Pain and not Nagato. But yeah. Thank you guys very much for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe, and leave comments down below. Let me know what I should watch and discuss in future videos. And I'll see you guys. next time.